Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 54 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I'm James Parisi here with my wonderful co-host Aiden Sarah. It's not feeling so wonderful on either end for us as both of our teams have been knocked out in the last week, rather heartbreaking fashion. But, speaking of this wonderful co-host, I gotta ask, how are you doing? Are you faring better than I am after our hearts have been broken?
Probably not, but but you got to lose before you can win. I'm pretty optimistic. Obviously, we'll talk specifically Vancouver, but I am pretty optimistic about the team as a whole. Um, I'm more interested actually to hear how you feel about the Avs after Dallas beat them in 6 games, and the game winner was scored by a guy who you watched play for the Colorado Avalanche for how many years? Were you Did the fact Duchesne scored make it worse or marginally better?
It softened the blow by about 30%.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's a more positive answer than I expected.
And then the celly he used softened it by another 5%. When he ripping the heart open with that heartbreaker, yeah, that was another little softener. That's probably my favorite goal celebration.
And that's even with the context that it was your heart that he was breaking.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's a guy that I want to see win. Like that's just a legit pro. That's someone that I always cheer for.
Yeah.
I unfollowed most NHL players on Instagram because at one point my Instagram following just became all NHL stuff in my feed, and I kind of wanted to see what my friends were up to. And that was one of probably a dozen that I kept.
My following number on Instagram is similarly out of hand of just like,
Yeah.
okay, why am I following this fourth liner for the Minnesota Wild right now? But
Well, I mean, once I saw that I was still following Matt Fratton and I had no idea why I was following Matt Fratton, I kind of had to like solve this. And no offense to Matt Fratton on the off chance he ever hears this. Solid dude and a hardworking player from what I remember, but I didn't need to be following Matt Fratton's life.
there was a year when LA was good that I legitimately thought Matt Fratton was going to fill in as a top six forward for them. And I didn't think he was going to be like a bona fide, oh, yeah, he's going to score 25 goals and 50 points. But I kind of thought he was going to do kind of what Pius Suter did for Vancouver this year, where he was like that utility top six winger option. I'm pretty sure it was 2014 because then they ended up, he was part of the Gabrick trade. But going into the year LA won the cup, he was like, and it wasn't just me. Like I think he was projected as a second liner. And then Pearson and Toffoli emerged, and they traded for Gabrick, so it didn't happen. But you say that name, and I just think LA Stanley Cup, even though he definitely didn't contribute to the win, aside from helping fetch Marion Gabrick.
Well, Aiden, before we dive into our respective playoff losses and everything else going on in the hockey world, I would like to address that I finally made it out to visit you, meet your friends, meet your dad, and watch a hockey game at your place.
Yeah, in years that's never happened. Which it was, it was it a happy day? What game was that? That was game five, so it was a happy day, wasn't it?
It was a happy day. There were very many jumps and screams and positivity. We ate pizza. I watched your dad make a mockery of your friend's foosball skills. Also, if anyone thinks they are good at foosball, I urge you to challenge Aiden's dad. It's not going to go well. He will humble you real quick.
It's unfair.
Like, do you know anyone who could beat him?
No,
Anyone?
and I'm okay, right? Like on any sort of rational, real, normal scale, I'd be good at that game. As would my buddy Cameron, who you met. He's been so cocky that he's challenged and then successfully beat both of us playing on one team, and he has used one hand. Like one hand is behind his back, and it's Cameron and I on one side of that table, and he beats us somehow with one hand, which seems crazy that that's not a made up story. And it's
Has
a
he ever revealed his secret, how he got so good? Like, how did this happen? Was this like his college thing that him and his buddies did? I don't get it.
no, not even. He had one in his house. He said he was playing it like before he could see over the table. And then he had an older brother that was also crazy good, which if you've ever had like an older sibling or family member semi consistently beat you at something, it is fuel to get very good at that thing and then beat your sibling or other.
Yes. I grew up with my grandparents, and my uncle is only 8.5, 9 years older than me, so he was an older brother figure to me. And I watched him dominate Pokemon games and always destroy his friends in Link battles, so that motivated me to become the very best that there ever was. And like, I mean, to catch them was my real test, and to train them was my cause. Just so you know.
I know you're making a reference, but I'm not familiar enough with Pokemon
Yeah,
to
yeah,
know.
yeah. That's the Pokemon theme song. Just so you
Yeah,
know.
okay.
And Aiden, just so you know, our intro, and for everyone listening, our intro that Gareth made, all I sent him for inspiration was the intro to the fourth season of Pokemon. Yeah. So you know what? This is like a Pokemon adjacent podcast, whether you know or like it.
Well, it's I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, I don't like Pokemon. I have about as little knowledge and context for anything Pokemon as anybody. So I'm not one of those person, no one of those people that's just gonna crap on something because I am not familiar with it. But I will express my deep unfamiliarity with it.
But Aiden, it looks like, we've got more exciting sports coming up in your basement though, don't we? Don't we have some Portugal to cheer for coming up?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't shut up about the World Cup last time it happened, and every 2 years there is another big international soccer tournament, which is a cause of excitement and anxiety correlating with one another. Yeah, dude, if if you wanna watch a bunch of Portuguese people go crazy for an hour and a half, you're very welcome to be in my house during the hopefully seven, at least three games they're gonna play this summer in that European Championship.
All right, when are we looking at? And is there a traditional food or snack your family does for this?
No, no, I wouldn't say traditional food or snack. I can't, there's the usual family, the the usual suspects of dinners and entrees or whatnot. Nothing specifically correlating to soccer or being here or anything like that. Um, Traditions, it's always just been my uncle, my dad, my grandpa, and me at least to watch, when the tournament gets down to the final, we'll always watch the end of it together. And it's kind of funny. Like my family's Portuguese. My uncle that married into the family's Italian. So we've had three European Championship finals in a row where Italy, Portugal, and then Italy again have been playing in them. So the hope is that we're back and the trend continues and we have somebody to.
Last question on this Euro. Where does Portugal sit in the power rankings going in there?
I got them at two.
Whoa,
I got
okay.
them.
Where does everyone else have them?
Probably not at two. More realistically, right around the three mark. Um, England are good. They're better than they usually are, but England will also always be perennially overrated. It's in many ways, English soccer and England fans are the Toronto Maple Leafs of soccer. And so, the attention and the spotlight and the hub that is English media, especially for North America, will always make those English players sound a lot better than they are. So France is everybody's number one. I think that is, is remotely well versed at this soccer thing. France is one, and then it's Portugal or England for me that are two. I could see it.
In my limited footy knowledge, I think Harry Kane's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, he'll scored a lot of goals this year, didn't win any trophies, but if he keeps scoring goals, that'll help them.
Totally, totally. Well, moving into playoffs. Where do we start? Which one of our sad failures do we start with?
Yeah,
And I keep saying this like we're parts of the team, but that's just what happens when you're a lifelong fan of something.
yeah. Well, we'll start Vancouver.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess most importantly, how do you feel?
Optimistic. Like at the end of the day, a lot didn't go right. In fact, I'd probably say that more went wrong than went right throughout the entire playoffs and B the entire lead up to the playoffs. And in spite of maybe luck not being on their side, Vancouver had a good showing. Beat Nashville in the first round. I didn't expect them to after Demko went down. and then pushed Edmonton to 7. I didn't expect them to without Demko. um, that game 7 specifically, which I'm sure we'll get into talking a little bit more. Like I don't think it can be understated, like the impact that showing up at the rink in the morning and then hearing, oh yeah, your best player is actually not playing in arguably the biggest game of any of your careers.
Well, Aiden, I know how that feels from my experience about 5 days earlier.
No kidding. Well, and you know what's funny is the way Colorado looked without Nichushkin and Taves. It was very similar to the way Vancouver looked. They
Yeah.
looked debilitated. They looked like, they looked like a significant portion of their life had been sucked out of them. And you know, they couldn't get over that until 55 minutes into the hockey game, and at that point it was too late.
You know, as much as a lot of Canucks fans online really grinded my gears, like grinded my gears a lot, in fact, like the cockiness made me physically angry at times. Not you guys. Coming to watch with you guys was awesome. You guys were actually realists and you guys were cool. But everyone else I know who was a Canucks fan was like, this team, this is the team of destiny. Like just your one time getting in the dance recently is just means you're the best there ever was. That's how people were talking, and that bothered me considering how many times I've watched my team in the second round in my adult life. Um, it's it's hard. Getting past that second round mountain is really hard. And you know what? Just getting to that point is a massive achievement in its own. So seeing the hype, seeing the excitement, seeing Rogers Arena sell out watch parties, apparently, allegedly, it was pretty damn cool. I liked seeing the city come alive again. And I think, maybe, just maybe, since there wasn't a tragic riot-ish event after the Canucks lost in game 7, I think maybe, just maybe, Vancouver, the city, lets Vancouver, the team, have outdoor watch parties next year if there's a playoff run.
Yeah, and then, like there's a certain there's a certain parallel I'm going to draw here, which is not about the watch parties, but it is about the team. Because
Hmm.
you're saying it that, oh, hopefully next year X, Y, and Z. Like two things right now are important to keep in mind, I think, for the Vancouver Canucks. The first is that I don't know if their superstars are even in their prime yet, right? Obviously Miller is, and Besser's at the age where you have to say yes, but Pedersen and Hughes, if they're in their primes, it's year 1 or 2, right? Which
Yeah.
means which means it's not the peak. There's better to come, and I think for the Canucks, keeping that in mind is important. Um, that is point one. Point two is I definitely personally don't remember ever feeling this confident in a management group by the Vancouver Canucks. Generally, it's been the feeling of, all right, so it's going terribly. Either it's going to continue to go terribly, or if it's going well, it will inevitably be going terribly because Jim Benning's running this team. That's gone. Alvin and Rutherford have done a good job so far, and no reason to really worry that that is going to be in jeopardy. Um, I think that's it. It was disappointing the way the series finished. You would have wanted them to play better in game 6. You kind of get what happened in game 7. I'm glad they pushed game 7, made it close. I just wanted them to score. I didn't want to get shut out again.
I'm glad you mentioned Elias Pettersson because you reminded me of a point I wanted to make. All playoffs long, I was so disappointed by the guy. So was everyone else, everyone in the media, all the fans were. But the last 2 games, I watched that guy bang bodies, put his body on the line for plays, and just like every hit he tried to make looked like he was trying to make a difference. And that was the effort level that you need to see from a superstar that's not scoring. Yeah, of course you want him scoring. Yeah, of course you want him making crazy plays. Yes, you know what? In that game, there were a lot of things where it was like, oh, the puck's on his stick and it looks like he could do something. Oh, it just bounced off his stick and he didn't look confident with it. Yeah, you know what? Whatever. He's not having great puck luck. He's not super confident. But every time he went to bang bodies, he was trying to make a difference. And that's what you need. That's what you want. And that's what makes the guys in depth roles go like, oh, okay. all right, he's showing out for us. Let's show up for him. Let's do that next man up thing. And that's where you see a Connor Garland come in and try to make a difference. God, that guy was good. I've always said he passes the eye test. And it's like, okay, when's the production going to come? Yeah, you know what? He keeps passing the eye test. I don't know of many players in my Canucks watching lifetime, which is I've probably casually watched them my entire life between friends and family and just living in BC forever. Um, he always passes the eye test. That guy's always trying his hardest and always making at least the start of a play. And I really like that. I think that's a guy they got to work on keeping around.
He did the minimum in those last couple games, and he hadn't been doing the minimum. Um,
Pedersen, that is.
yeah, and yeah, I'll get to Garland because Garland, man, like actually, you know what? You finish with Garland. I'll start with Garland. So this is a guy who, like, day before the season's supposed to start, Vancouver pretty much can't trade him, and it sort of stands to reason. He'd been coming off 2 seasons that had been, below what his expectations were with Vancouver after he was traded from Arizona. And you've got a winger who's not shown much more, if any more, than a middle six winger making almost $5 million, and teams generally don't have the budget for that in the salary cap. So it made a little bit of sense they couldn't move him. And then by November, it was a godsend that they couldn't move him. And it wasn't that I kept expecting him to cool off like his production a little bit, maybe, but you're right that he's always passed the eye test. So as a fan and even as somebody who's analyzing this game and the games that Garland's playing, it felt like I was just waiting for this, right? It felt like I was waiting. Okay, you know what, man? He goes out there, he grinds, he works hard. That was all to another level this year. That it was great to see that he had in him. But he was doing the same. The building blocks of his game, the foundation was still good, and it was still the same. And it just kind of felt like he was getting the bounces this year. That and he was at least on a line with one player, Dakota Joshua, who was awesome with him all year, and their centers rotated a little bit. But then aside specifically from Garland, we're talking Pedersen here. Pedersen to me, so he did the minimum, like I said, in the last couple games. I always with players really clue into how do you play after you've signed a big contract, because I kind of think it's a character thing. You notice that when a guy's in a contract year, I'll tell you this right now, everybody, if you're picking a hockey pool team, like if you are so many of the the fans in the Vancouver area that decided that hockey was the greatest thing in the world for 3 weeks, I do hope that you continue to be fans of the Vancouver Canucks. And if you do and end up in a hockey pool next year, the best way to find value late in a hockey pool draft is to look up what players are on expiring contracts, because those players most of the time have an extra little bit of motivation to play hockey well, because they will become more rich if they do that. Pedersen's play tailing off after he signed the big contract extension, I think, was brutally obvious. And if there's any sort of sour taste in my mouth when it comes to Pedersen after the season, it wasn't necessarily that he didn't play well in the playoffs. Like, again, the parallel I always draw is the Washington Capitals. You think about Ovechkin and Nick Backstrom and Kuznetsov and Oshie, and John Carlson. That group of players would have been remembered so differently right now had they not won the cup in 2018. But you look at all the playoff failures that team had before, and then one year they did it. They finally broke through. I'm not gonna completely dunk on a guy for having a bad playoff. Everybody else is doing that. I don't need to do that too. Yeah, you know what? He wasn't good. He wasn't as good as he needed to be. But what bothered me is that the entire season it was split up into before he signed and after he signed. And after he signed, he just wasn't the same player. And that's the part I'm disappointed with. Listen, if he's not going to play the best hockey of his career, he's not going to play the best hockey of this. He's not going to. He's just not. Big deal. But you sign a contract that's paying him $11.5 million a season. Man, you got to show up a little bit more than that. So I'm not on the same oh my god Pedersen sucks train as everybody else in the city immediately was after the series ended. But it was disappointing to see that when he was playing for money, he was playing better.
I totally agree. One positive caveat that I will spin around on there is There's a lot of guys who are objectively bad in with one of their first couple playoff rounds. That's a thing. A lot of guys have to learn to be great in the playoffs. It's just, and a lot of guys end up being great playoff players that don't show up on the score sheet too. So he could be one of those guys that's a 0.65 points per game in the playoffs, but scores big goals at the right times and makes a difference for his teammates, kind of thing. That could be a thing. Or he could be a great matchup guy. There's a lot of players like that. Like Joe Thornton's playoff points per game isn't fantastic, but you can look back and see that he was a great matchup guy against the Red Wings, against all of these other teams that they had to play against.
Yeah,
So,
ask Vancouver fans, ask Vancouver media how JT Miller played. Like
yeah,
Connor McDavid at 5-on-5 didn't do very much in that series. And it was largely because JT Miller was playing so well against him. Now, Miller, because the entire point of his existence in that series was to shut down the best player in the world, well, he didn't have very many points, but that doesn't take an ounce away from the value he brought in that series, not to mention the game winner in game five. Um, but that's Vancouver. I don't have a whole impassioned speech about how I'm mad that they lost in the second round.
I've
I'm
got one more Vancouver point before we dip on them because we probably won't be talking about them again until what, before the draft?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So, the one thing I have to say, it's been a couple years now, and I remember a couple years ago everyone going, get rid of JT Miller, get rid of JT Miller, blah, 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 blah. And then Horvat gets moved, and it's like, oh, I wish it was Miller, keep Horvat, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Love Horvat, great player. But I was always in the JT Miller corner. Now, probably your best player on most nights. Everyone in the arena is chanting his name. Where are all the JT Miller haters now? Where are they at?
180, man. Like a total spin on a dime. And for me,
Mhm.
my opinion just changed on him because the the competitive window that Vancouver was going to have moved up from where I thought it was going to be. Right? I didn't see this team being this good. The the team seemed way too flawed to be at this stage in 2023-24. So for me, paying JT Miller $8 million into his late 30s when I didn't even think the team was going to be good till at least his mid 30s was the gripe I had. But again, like it's it kind of speaks more. And James, like you're saying this is such a point that I didn't think would remotely come into this here, but it's definitely dawning on me with my experience this year. I don't know if I want to elaborate more on this point. Um, it's dawning on me that I'll try and phrase it in the 80% of terrible hockey takes are from just casuals. That's what I've noticed because Vancouver when they were bad, who's going to be a fan of a terrible team if they're bad? Probably only diehard fans. So I didn't really notice it with Vancouver fans that you'd be getting these just ridiculous things being said. And you know what? I live in Alberta. I'll say the same about Oilers fans. Like when a team is good and a team's close to the Stanley Cup, it's almost like casual sports fans get FOMO, and then they have to jump in and then try and say a bunch of stuff about the team and the league and the sport. And you're I'm James, I know for a fact you've sat in an arena around people that are just yapping nonsense, and all you want to do is move to a different seat. And so yeah, you're talking about like the JT Miller slander, like totally valid. A lot of very knowledgeable people were criticizing that, but that's been one of my lasting impressions out of this year is the bandwagoning casual fans need to need to just step aside sometimes and let people who know something about the sport analyze it.
I'll 60% agree with you because when Colorado won the cup in 2022, what I heard probably 2 or 3 times a week was, "Oh yeah, I'm an Abs fan too." Huh, interesting. I've never heard that before, and I've known you for years. That's cool news. But also, I welcome everyone on the bandwagon. Enjoy. It's fun. I like it. It's a good time. Like I've said a ton of times on this podcast, throughout the 2010s when Colorado was bad, I would cheer for the Rangers in playoffs because I needed the bandwagon to jump on and I wanted the consistent wagon to choose. I didn't want to keep hitchhiking in every different direction and seeing where I might end up. I chose one bandwagon and I don't know, it was pretty cool. They didn't win a cup, but there were a couple pretty sweet runs. But is it time to move on to my team? Because I kind of want to get this over with.
Yeah, I definitely, for good reason, think there's going to be a lot more despair out of you than there was out of me when it comes to this here. So take it away.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to preface it because one thing we learned in journalism school is to never preface anything. But I'll summarize it. This Avalanche run was a roller coaster of ups and downs. And sometimes I have a hard time calling a second round a run, but it felt like a run because of the season that some players had and the build up to playoffs and the roller coaster of emotions throughout because after the first game against Winnipeg, it was, they're going to lose. Their goalie is bad, bad. And then it was, whoa, we're crazy good. We're going to go win a cup. And then it was, oh no, Dallas is scary, but we're really fast and we're going to come back so we can beat them and we're going to beat them. And then it was, uh-oh, wait a minute. We don't know how to play in the first 40 minutes of the game. And then it was, oh no, our leading scorer is gone after stuff we previously discussed with the player assistance program and what is reportedly a failed drug test. And then it was, you know what? This Dallas team is just really that good. Hopefully we can hold on for dear life. And you know what? The Avalanche did hold on for a bit. Cale Makar had a fantastic game. I believe that was game 5. Um, it it gave me hope. And you know what I've told you a million times, Aiden? It's the hope that kills you.
It
I
is.
wish I never had that hope injected.
No,
But also at the same time, on the other side of that coin, it was awesome watching Colorado win another game. And I think a lot of people who just enjoy watching hockey enjoyed watching that game. And we only got one game 7 in the second round. I'm happy that we at least got another game 6 with that. And, you know, it was a good series, all things considered. Dallas is a very deserving team. They made it past Colorado. They outlasted them. They outworked them. They're deeper than them. They are better. Colorado had the best 2 players in the series. You know what? Dallas had the best 4 lines. Dallas had the best goalie. Dallas had the best defense. I'm sorry. That's 3 ways you're outmatched out of 4. Arguably 3 of 3. Um, but you know what? Like the crazy thing too, one of my friends, I was texting with him earlier and he went, man, Jason Robertson looked good against Colorado. And my thought was, I barely even noticed him considering how good Miro Heiskanen, Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, Jake Ottinger, those four those 4 alone were just absolute insanity. Thomas Harley is a legitimate top pair defenseman. Like, what the hell? If Dallas doesn't beat Edmonton next round, I will be shocked. And I always feel a hell of a lot better losing against one of the last 2 teams in the league left standing. I know everyone can say like, oh, like we lost against the cup winner. No, 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 no. You lose against the team that wins your conference, the best of the 16 teams in your conference. I think that's pretty damn impressive. Like Vegas was ousted first round. They could have won the cup this year. I have no problem losing against Dallas. And then for one more reason that I haven't mentioned yet, and you know what? I think we've talked about it already. I'm going to name multiple players. Aiden will know immediately one thing they all have in common. Joe Pavelski, Ryan Suter, Matt Duchene. What do they have in common, Aiden? Oh, Jamie Benn as well.
no cup vets.
Exactly. So anyone who isn't a fan of any of the four teams left, cheer for Dallas. These are four veterans, four great pros who have all had long, great careers and deserve a cup more than probably 90% of the league.
Chris Tanev.
Chris Tanev, there you go. There's another one. Has he played 1,000 games?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
I think the rest of those guys have played 1,000 games. I think so at least. But yeah, I mean, I digress. I am cheering for Dallas going forward.
Yeah,
I want a Dallas Florida final. I think that will be the most fun. I
I think
think that will make for the best hockey.
I probably think a Rangers Dallas series would be more entertaining. Um, I don't think I disagree with the let's Dallas let's go Stars because you're right, absolutely. You've got some veterans on that team that you would totally want to win. Wyatt Johnston's also turning into one of my favorite players in the league. Like, yeah, I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh my God, I really want this 21-year-old to get his Stanley Cup the same way that I want a 39-year-old Pavelski to, get it on his last dance." But uh, they are good. Like, it's not a secret. And you touched on Thomas Harley. He's been amazing. Miro Heiskanen again. Like, there's some seasons, there's some games, series is just performance that a player is all of a sudden in that superstar category. And you thought with Heiskanen it was going to be the 2020 run, but then all the COVID stuff didn't help. Just the seasons never being normal wouldn't have helped him. But it seems like he's at that level and better than ever at this point. Like he's probably the best defenseman left in the playoffs, right? He has to be. Adam Fox is not playing as good as he is. Evan
Yeah,
Bouchard.
but Aiden, have you ever seen how the Adam Fox stands talk? To them, he is the best thing since sliced bread, and he is Bobby Orr 2.0, and no other defenseman in the league is as good as him because he beat Cale Makar in a Norris vote once.
Yeah, I mean, I like Adam Fox a lot. I think he's an excellent defenseman.
Yeah, he's a top 5D in the league.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Most times I'll say top three, but he's not top two. um, yeah, I mean, I think it's Dallas's series to lose against the Oilers. The Stanley Cup final will be a lot closer, whether it's Dallas, Florida,
Aiden,
or
can I actually interrupt you once to just say one last note on Colorado?
yeah, go ahead.
Um, when the Avalanche won the cup, they had three lines of very dangerous attack, and two of those big pieces that made up that were Valerie Nichushkin and Gabriel Landeskog. The Nichushkin situation, perhaps could be remedied by next season. Perhaps. That contract can't actually be terminated from what I've been reading online because of because Colorado doesn't have anything in their player policies in their contract about drug and alcohol related breaches of conduct. I need to fact
Wow.
check that, but 95% of the internet saying that kind of makes me believe it's true.
Okay. Also, by the way, like totally, this is about as conversation for another day as anything could be. Um, why aren't player assistance program participants taken off your salary cap the same way an LTIR is? Does that not seem stupid and crazy that somebody in the
Well,
player assistance program isn't automatically it doesn't automatically like if they miss enough games they can be on LTIR, but it's not like it's not the same. And I'm not totally 1,000% sure on all the rules around it, but my understanding is that a player in the player assistance program will generally not be placed on LTIR.
I think that's somewhat correct. I
Yeah,
know with the Nichushkin situation now, he's suspended without pay. So, but that's a different thing. That's a different animal altogether.
yeah, I don't know what that means for the salary cap.
But I mean, all this Nichushkin stuff. I mean, I need to repeat. Aiden and I are both person first, player first. Like this, like the ultimate issue here is his well-being. Like I'm not really nearly as worried about him coming back to the lineup or his dollars being put to good use. I really just care about the guy being okay. But moving on to the second thing, the Landeskog thing. By the time this episode is out, I imagine, because Thursday morning, Gabriel Landeskog and Colorado Avalanche general manager Chris McFarland are having a special press conference. I have no idea what that's going to be about for sure, but my guess is we are just going to hear that Gabriel Landeskog still is not ready and is likely a long ways off. That's what I think we're going to hear. People online are panicking, thinking this is retirement. But Gabriel Landeskog would not retire out of his contract and surrender all of those years of millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, he's not an idiot, guys, if you if you can believe that.
Yeah, yeah. It's not just good looks and skill there. But yeah, so that's a couple things going on in Avalanche land also, and I think maybe a couple other guys could be making the team next year to help solve those scoring issues up front. But moving on. Moving
Definitely.
on
Oh,
to where are we moving now, Aiden? Where are we moving? Because I feel like I've let this train get away a few times.
no, I mean it's we've been on for 35 minutes and the whole thing has been a train. That's been sometimes those are the best episodes, sometimes those are the worst. You can let us know privately. Anyways. Carolina Hurricanes lose to the New York Rangers, and you've got to ask the question, and I'll pose it to you, James. Um, at what point does this stop being, run it back and try again with this Hurricanes team?
Well, they re-signed Rod Brindamore, which I don't think was a mistake, contrary to a lot of people online's belief.
No,
I don't know why anyone would think that's a mistake. This guy is a great coach, a great pro, and he loves the place. He won a cup there. He's the perfect mixture of heart, soul, alumni, and knowledge. I think that's awesome. Like I think he's like the modern version of when a Montreal Canadiens legend would become coach or GM of the team. Like I think it's sick, and I don't see any reason why anyone online thinks that they shouldn't have renewed him. But yeah, Aiden, I think maybe a change up front might be worth it. They have a lot of things to deal with this offseason. We're looking at their prized rental from the trade deadline, Jake Gensel. He's going to want to go make some money, whether or not that's in Carolina. I believe Teuvo Teravainen's up. Seth Jarvis is a restricted free agent this year. He's going to get paid. Like on some nights, he's their best player.
Oh yeah.
He's
Well,
going to get paid for sure. Um, I think Brady Shea might be another one.
yeah, Brady Shea's in UFA, and he's Brett Pesci's a UFA. Do you want me to run through this?
Yeah, yeah, run through it because there's a lot, isn't there?
Yeah. So RFA's forwards: Max Comtois, Jack Drury, Seth Jarvis, Marty Necas, and Ryan Suzuki. Three of the five are arbitration eligible. They are Comtois, Drury, and Necas. UFAs on the forwards: Jake Gensel, Jordan Martinook, Stefan Nason, and Teuvo Teravainen. That's four very useful, effective wingers for that team. On the back end, only Scott Morrow's ELC runs past next year. They've got Dmitry Orlov, Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns as their only three NHL defensemen under contract this year, unless Scott Morrow makes the jump, which is very possible.
I
But
think he could.
yeah, Scott Morrow and Ronan Seeley are both on ELCs. Then you've got Dylan Coughlin as an RFA with arbitration rights. Jalen Chatfield, Anthony D'Angelo, Brett Pesci, and Brady Sherry are UFAs. And then Freddie Anderson, Pyotr Kochetkov, and Spencer Martin all under contract next year, with it being the last for Anderson and Martin. Yeah, you said it, a lot to do. We'll see what's up with maybe like a Noel Gunler. He's 22 years old. If it's going to happen again, you got to think it's sooner, it's now. Um, Ty Smith is an RFA with arbitration rights. I still think he is going to turn into an NHL defenseman, honestly. A bottom pair guy who can play second power play unit. I wouldn't I wouldn't turn my nose up on that. And then you've got a guy like Jackson Blake sitting in college right now. He had a great season at Nodak again. two in a row now. Blake is at the age again where it's the question of, okay, is he gonna go back to Nodak at the age of, I believe, 20 now, probably for one more year, but he's had two dominant seasons in that league. And then Alexander Nikishin's the other one, Russian defenseman. He's coming. He'll be good. So Carolina have some options in terms of prospects coming up, but with the with the amount of free agents, man, like something, if there's going to be a change, it has to be this year, doesn't it? With the fact that you have Kuznetsov still under contract, Kokaniemi, Aho, and Svechnikov long term. Jordan Staal's got 3 years at 2.9 to be your captain. Jesper
Nice.
Fast is expiring. And then after that, you've got Bradley Nadeau and Jackson Blake, who will maybe be NHLers, maybe be AHLers next year. We'll see. And then you've got Brennan Lemieux, and that's it for forwards, right? Like you talked about Gensel, Nason, Martinuk, and Teravainen are all going to be hard to replace. And Marty Necas, if anybody goes, I think it's him.
I think Teravainen's gone.
Oh, me too. No, I mean,
He's been there for 8 years. How fast has that gone by?
yeah, he's been there for 8 years, and every year I think he's going to end up doing better than he does. And I never learned that maybe he's just not.
There
not
were a couple pretty good years.
Yeah, for sure. And I thought those were going to be building blocks for this guy to be a first line winger. But I was huge on this guy. He was one of the first ones that I really paid attention to before he was in the NHL. Like his emergence in Europe was kind of at the age where I started like caring about
Right, right.
prospects. So I've always been waiting for this guy to blow up because I
There was
love.
also one NHL game where in franchise mode he would get to like a 93.
And that's more what I expected. And I was never a video game guy until I graduated high school, so that wouldn't have been my introduction to him. But um, that's more what I expected out of him than what we got.
I guess I kind of agree with the Natchez thing because I think they have a lot of creative skill guys that are have a more multifaceted skill set and are able to do a little bit more. And I think there are some other teams out there who are really looking for a Marty Natchez and who would be willing to make a hockey trade.
Don't forget, Carolina also have first kick of the can at Gensel, right? Trying to
Yeah.
get somebody like Jake Gensel in the open market. You're gonna pay a lot of money. And if you get him over other teams, you're gonna probably pay more than the player might be worth because everybody's willing to pay what he's worth. It's who's gonna go above that. That's gonna end up getting the player. Um,
One thing I will say though, for a lot of players, they understand and respect a good fit. Jake Gensel was a very good fit in Carolina. Him and Seth Jarvis instantly made friends and had great chemistry, and apparently were always just joking around together. Apparently he loved it there, and that's a good start. Like when there's a good fit, do you really, really, really want to just throw yourself into the fire and see where you land?
Not really.
No, no, you don't. And Carolina has something else up their sleeve. They have Justin Williams in their corner. You know how often Justin Williams contacts players when there's something like this going on? Because I've heard it's a lot. He's there. All right, man. Let me just get in your ear for a bit. I don't care if it changes anything. I just want you to hear me out. You don't think he had something to do with Jordan Staal signing for $2.9 million long term? Like there's a lot of factors here. I don't think I don't think we're going to see the same Carolina team next year. That's the summary of it all. But you know what? I'm not going to doubt them being better next year than they were this year.
Kind of at the halfway point of the pod, we probably talked more losers than winners. So winners are Rangers, Panthers, Stars, Oilers. We'll start in the East. Game one was tonight. James, Florida won, and I'll keep my analysis of it short for now. They won because their goalie was better. Sergei Bobrovsky played awesome, and Igor Shesterkin led in 1 week goal. And when the other goalie is playing that well, 1 week goal can sink the crap out of you. and that's what it did. Matthew Tkachuk beating Shesterkin in the first is one Igor would want to have back, and one you can't really let into that situation when the guy on the other end of the ice is playing that well. So, Rangers Dallas was my pre-playoff final, and I'm sticking to it. I think the Rangers are going to come back, but Sergei Bobrovsky is going to be a problem for them. He's playing very good hockey, and Florida as a whole. What's the weaknesses right now with that Panthers team? As much as I'm really high on the Rangers, I think their superstars are dynamic players who can change a game in a second. Well, Florida's you're still going to have to find the Achilles heel of the Florida Panthers, and I don't know what it is.
Aiden, yeah, were you ever in class in elementary school, high school, and a teacher asks you a question that you were just completely unprepared for because to your knowledge, there is no answer for it?
I don't remember being in class much, but I can respect the sentiment enough to go along with this.
Yeah, because I don't think there is a weakness. I don't think there's a weakness at all. I think the weakness is bad puck luck or getting outworked, maybe. I think that's how you're going to beat them. You have to outwork them, which really isn't easy because those four lines are a nonstop buzzsaw. It's like, oh, you finally dealt with the forecheck that their third line unleashed on you, and now you have to deal with Barkov coming on the ice and making you look bad. Oh, okay, you finally made it through that. Now Matthew Tkachuk and Carter Verhaeghe are chipping away at you, rocking you, and then scoring on you. Hmm. Oh, then it just bounced to Carter Verhaeghe because that guy is Mr. Right Place, Right Time and has some of the better playoff numbers I've seen. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I love the Rangers, Aiden. It's one hell of a team. I love watching them. But even though I am wrong all the time, going with my gut here, the Rangers aren't going to be able to find a weakness for more than two games where they either outwork them or outbounce them or outluck them or Igor Shesterkin steals. That's it. That's how you win. Those are four paths to success, and typically most of those are going to go together. Do you have any others? Because I sure don't.
No, probably not. I think power play, you know, like you've got Panarin, you got Zibanejad, you got Trocheck. All of those guys are just power play machines, for lack of a better term. Trocheck especially plays that bumper so well. It's a it's an often I'll call it an often underappreciated art to be the bumper on a power play. Um, it's not easy, and it can be very effective when you do it very well. And he's awesome in that spot for the Rangers. Um, it's hard because Florida, to me, yeah, it's going to be either they win the cup or they themselves just aren't good enough. That's it.
Yeah. You know, Aiden, I will say there's one more. I'll call it a second X factor because like I kind of named my X factor in the whole everything has to go right for the Rangers to beat them in on any given night. Second X factor though, Alexis Lafreniere.
Yeah.
He has to convert on these chances because he looks confident. He looks great out there. He's making things happen, kind of. He's creating opportunity and creating chances. He's making space. He's outworking and getting around players when he needs to, which is not something you saw from him a couple years ago. As we've discussed before, the guy's arrived. Like he is on the path again to becoming a star in this league. He is probably on the cusp of it, to be honest. Um, I think he needs to get to the point where him and Panarin and Trocheck have to take over games. They have to be that good, and I think it's gonna have to come from him because from what I saw tonight, those Panthers players are all over Panarin. They are giving him hell. Whenever he has the puck, there is no space. There's more space for Laugh, though. There's a hell of a lot more space for Laugh. So if he can create separation, create a couple chances, maybe get it back to the blue line after creating separation, cause some havoc in front of Bobrovsky, I think there's a chance.
Well, and we're sitting here talking about do the Rangers have a chance after they lost game one? You bring up Alexi Lafreniere. It's 1-0 Florida. By the
Yep.
way, I thought it was a goal. I thought Ekman Larson's goal was a goal.
Yep, me too.
Lindgren, like I don't know who was it, Gary Galley on the Sportsnet broadcast was talking about, oh, he goes there and then and the push from Lindgren doesn't do enough. Ryan Lindgren has two hands on his stick and he cross checks Lomberg in the direction of Shesterkin, and then Shesterkin does have a second to see the shot. And did he have enough time if there was interference? No, I totally agree that the interference put him off, but Lomberg going to the front of the net isn't goalie interference. The contact happens because of Lindgren. That's my 2 cents. I also thought, by the way, that the Dallas Stars Colorado Avalanche Game 6 overtime call was one of the worst calls I've ever seen in my life.
I don't need to talk about it because the Avalanche didn't win, so it's a moot point and it never happened, and I don't care about it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It could have, but it didn't, which is good. Um, so for the Rangers, we're sitting.
Actually, Aiden, before you move on, the best comment that I saw about that online was, man, what an insane 3-1 overtime win. I've never seen anything like it.
I did also see that and
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Point I'm trying to make about Rangers Panthers game one is Alexis Lafreniere from the slot has a chance in the third period, down 1-0 to tie it, and he hits the post. And then maybe 4 or 5 minutes later, he has a centering pass go off his stick and in. Like that's how close we were to 1-1, and instead it was 2-0. So at the end of the day, like, do the Rangers have a chance? Yeah, they could have easily won this game.
I'm not going to say easily, but yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a great series no matter what. Like when this playoff started, you saw the path where these teams could be meeting in the conference finals. And I think just about everyone had these two teams meeting in the conference finals. Everyone except me, because I had Carolina instead of the Rangers.
A
But
lot of people had Carolina instead of the Rangers.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've picked Carolina to win the cup 2 or 3 times now. It's just, should I just keep doing it until it happens?
That was my strategy with the Colorado Avalanche, funny enough.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, this is going to be a great series. I think this could end up being the best series of playoffs. Very well could be. I think we're going to see some controversy, some very physical controversy, because between Matthew Tkachuk and Jacob Trouba, there's more than enough. More than enough.
Dallas Edmonton, you see probably one of the most superstar carried teams ever against one of the deepest teams we've ever seen.
Yep.
It, at least post salary cap NHL playoffs. So to me, it's Dallas. To me, something has to go terribly wrong for it not to be Dallas. They win at forward, they win on defense, and they win in net. The only piece of the game that they absolutely don't win in is special teams. Their penalty kill has been bad in these playoffs, very simply put, not nearly good enough. And their power play has not been nearly good enough either. It's been better than their penalty kill, but Edmonton have the best power play in the playoffs and the best penalty kill in the playoffs. So if this series doesn't go Dallas's way, it's because Edmonton spanked them in special teams so bad that it didn't make up for the rest of the game of hockey. Um, I doubt that's going to happen. What do you think about this series?
God, I wanted Colorado to play the Oilers. Yeah, that's my first thought. But you know, everyone has the Stars winning this. We do have to give the Oilers some credit because they have a lot of fight in them. That is a team that, given the right moment, there is some fight in them. Um, I outwardly think and agree with everyone saying that the Stars are going to win this series. But you know what? There's going to be 1 or 2 games that the Oilers superstars can and probably will steal. Like this isn't going to be a sweep. It's not going to be that. And anyone who thinks that, I will in my head I'll argue with you, but I probably just won't give the conversation the time of day. I might just give you the, "Oh, that's crazy, bro," and then move on. Um,
The most
but
debilitating thing to hear.
yeah, yeah. Actually, the one that I use more is, "Yeah, that's wild." Yeah, if you hear me say that, I don't mean any offense. It just means you've lost my interest in the conversation. But yeah, so we've already talked a lot about the Stars at length because I had to give them their flowers. God, I keep saying that. Give them their flowers. Um, I think I said that like 6 times last pod. I listened through it. It wasn't pretty. But yeah, I mean, for the Oilers, because I have to talk about them a little bit more here, I have so many keys to the series for them. So many. So many things where I'm like, oh, well, this has to go right if they're going to win. And while you were talking, I just kept thinking of them. And I started with three, and I'm at 6 or 7 now. That says a lot. That says a ton. Number one, the first thing I'm thinking of, um, their gritty depth players have to be very good. Very good. I need to see Corey Perry in the lineup. He has to make a difference in front of the net. And that team, that line that he's playing on, they need to play Corey Perry hockey in front of there. They're trying to do fast zone entries with Corey Perry. They're not setting it up and giving it to him down low. So it's rendering him useless. If you have him in the lineup, use him properly. I'm not sure if that's a coaching thing or if that's the players on his line. I don't know, but I don't like it what I'm seeing there. Ryan McLeod needs to be 100 times better. I don't like targeting players, but Dallas has insane depth. Ryan McLeod needs to be 3 times the player he's been so far this playoffs. Dylan Holloway has been very good in spurts. Those can't be spurts. He has to be that good at least every other game. Another one for me, I think Matthias Ekholm is going to have the best series he's ever played. Ever. In fact, I think he's going to have to play 30 minutes a night. I don't know what he's playing right now. I don't know if Aiden, while I'm talking, you can check that for me, what his average time on ice for playoffs is. But he's going to have to outmuscle in terms of workload Miro Heiskanen. It is no small feat. Um, One thing that I've kind of heard on other podcasts from some of the bigger podcasts, and I don't like just repeating what they say, but I loved what they said. Aiden, Canucks fans fell in love with Nikita Zadorov this year, this playoffs, because you know what? He's a wild card. This is what Kevin Bieksa was talking about. He is a wild card. Sometimes you need a wild card. Okay, I get that Darnell Nurse makes an ungodly amount of money and an ungodly percentage of their salary cap. Um, he can be that wild card. He can be that make a big hit, hop in on a rush randomly, even though it's very dangerous to do so, and it just kind of works out. He can do that if things work out. I need him to be that wild card. I loved what Kevin Bieksa said about that. That is awesome. That's one of my favorite points I've heard recently. Another key. You get one off game from Stuart Skinner. He's allowed one off game the whole series. That's it. You get one, not two. This is no 3 strikes, you're out. Because if Stuart Skinner has 2 bad games, this series is probably over. He's going to need to play the best hockey he's ever played, other than one game. I think you can get away with one flub, as long as it doesn't destroy his confidence. Which, you know what, with goalies, that can happen. With any goalies, with even the best of them. So, yeah, am I missing any other keys? Oh yeah, one more. Adam Henrique needs to come back. They really need that guy. They paid a first round pick for him. And I mean, even though he hasn't produced a ton of points, I thought he's been very good when he's played, very useful in whatever role he's thrown in. That guy can play in every situation. They need an every situation guy, let alone they need the depth. They need the depth if they're going to go against the best forward depth in the league. Like, it's going to have to be an all hands on deck thing. And you know what? If they are all hands on deck, they can do it. We could see the Oilers in the finals. Let's not rule them out at all. Because you know what? They have the best player on the planet. They have another guy who is on some nights also the best player on the planet. Ryan Nugent Hopkins has been great lately. Evan Bouchard, those Bouch bombs are frightening. You saw that firsthand. Those are really scary. I mean, how fast did they get? Those were powerful shots, and a lot of them get through. And when they don't get through, what about that set play off the boards behind the net? That's insane. So you know what? This Oilers team can win. A lot needs to go right though. Do you have anything to add on that, or have I covered all of it at length?
No, you've totally ran the bases there. The whole time you were talking, I was waiting for you to bring up the goaltending. Ekholm just under 21 minutes a night so far.
Yeah,
That'll
I think he's gonna
go
have to
up.
play more.
Yeah, he's going to play at least 25 minutes on average in this series. I think that's a foregone conclusion. Edmonton, to me, it's what you said. It's the superstars, and either Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl get between 15 and 20 points each in this series, or they don't win. That's the biggest thing for me.
Wait, did you say between 15 and 20 points each this series?
Yeah, if it goes
Well,
past, if it goes 6 games or more, I think so.
so you think they need to get like 3 points a game for the Oilers to win?
But yeah, 2 or 3. That's my thinking.
Okay.
Because I don't think Dallas scores less than 3 on Skinner, and I don't see Edmonton secondary. I don't see Edmonton secondary score more than one a game. So do the math, right?
You know, but one thing we have seen from Dallas, there is the odd night where their offense dries up. That does happen.
Yeah, I don't think McDavid and Draisaitl need 4 points for every win. I'm saying that if you don't see them with ridiculous numbers out of this series, it means the Oilers didn't win.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm more worried about the depth, but that's a great point. Yeah. You know what? I'm so excited.
It's
This is
gonna
gonna be such a good conference finals.
no. I again, it's I like the Oilers team on paper, right?
Me too.
I do. So I'm not sour that they're there instead of Vancouver because they're good and it'll be fun.
And Aiden Canada's got a dog in the fight.
Yeah, I know everybody in the moment is like, no, I'm not cheering for the Oilers, and this is the Canada's team thing. Listen, at the end of the day, whether or not you want to see the Oilers win the Stanley Cup this year, I'm so sick of hearing that no Canadian teams won the cup since '93. So for that to be over, I totally, totally, totally want the Oilers to win the cup this year.
Yeah, and like show me a Canadian team in the final. Montreal didn't count.
Did a little bit.
Well,
The best
there
was
was well
very
like
late.
it to me, it's not about how they got there. It's about the fact that we didn't get to fully experience it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Because at the end of the day, what are you gonna blame them for the fact that it was weird? No.
No, no, not at all. That team worked. They won series. That's all that matters.
Not to mention everybody had the same opportunity, right? It could have very easily been
Yeah.
anybody else had they won 3 rounds of
Yeah,
play.
yeah, that's not my problem with it. My problem is like we didn't get to experience a Canadian team marching to the finals where like the whole country and these cities are just going mental for it. That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean. Because, even though I was only like 7 on the fringes of 8 years old when the Oilers were in the finals in 2006, dude, that was bananas. That was insane. You couldn't turn on the TV without going, I'm about to hear more about the Oilers in the finals, or okay, I'm going to watch this and see the best hockey night in Canada intro ever, ever. I repeat, ever. That is no contest. 2006. Oilers Hurricanes. No dice. That's I think I said before a long time ago, that's my Roman Empire is that Hockey Night in Canada intro and that playoff series. I'm pretty sure I said that. But yeah, man, I mean, I now that we've covered both these series, I'm sitting here realizing I don't care at all who wins the cup. I'm just so stoked for the level of competition and the kind of hockey that we're about to see. There are no pretenders here. There's no teams where it's like, oh, they're about to get wiped. This is awesome. This is like as good as it gets, I think.
I've
Because
been feeling
honestly,
this.
man, if Colorado got past Dallas, yeah, I would have loved it. But Dallas is better. The Stars are a better team. They're more deserving.
I'm feeling the same way, especially in the context of like I didn't really want anybody. I wasn't too fired up about Carolina potentially winning the cup. I definitely didn't want Vegas to win the cup last year. I'd be okay if Dallas or Florida won, but it feels like I'm I would at least in part be happy to see every single one of these teams potentially win the Stanley Cup. There'd be at least a player or a storyline I'd be happy for. I'm a Canucks fan, so I have the soft spot for teams that have never won the Stanley Cup. So you have Florida in that category, obviously. Dallas as
Aiden, you're actually doing right now exactly what I was about to do. I if you have a checklist for what you want from the last four teams left, you've got an original six team, you've got a Canadian team, you've got a team that hasn't won the cup, and you have veterans who haven't won the cup, and then you have top end talent. That's it. That's all you can ask for.
yeah. No, I'm excited. I really am.
And
So
Aiden, I will actually take this over the Cinderella story any day. Any day. The seventh seed that makes the conference finals and gets stomped on. I'll take this left and right any day.
well, and you know what's funny? You opened this up by asking me about the European Championship. I have a good friend of mine that him and I talk, we talk soccer a lot. He's a big soccer fan. And I always want to see in major tournaments and in any context, I want to see the best teams win because at the end of the day, that is how you're going to get the best version of the sport is the best teams and the best players. So as fun as it is to see a team that you didn't expect, like the Montreal Canadiens in that 2021 run, like that was fun to watch. I enjoyed that. I wanted them to win. This is pretty freaking awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, is there anything that's missing at all? No. Okay. Perfect. Yeah, there's nothing missing at all. I mean, Aiden, I think it's time to move on though from these series a bit, but I know you had a big point to make that we've talked about at length before about teams making it deep in the playoffs, having one thing on their roster. Aiden, run it. Tell me about it.
The top two pick, James. I'm going to go right now. I'm going to go NHL stats because NHL.com has this laid out in a way that I very, very much like. So let's look. Points leaders in the playoffs. It is currently the evening of Wednesday, May 22nd. So this is through one game of the Eastern Conference Final. Let's look at the points leaders. Leon Draisaitl, third overall pick. Connor McDavid, first overall pick. Evan Bouchard, 10th. Matthew Tkachuk, 6th. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, first. Cale Makar, fourth. Mikko Rantanen, 10th. Nathan MacKinnon, first. Mika Zibanejad was a 6th overall pick. And finally, down in 10th, you have Vincent Trocheck, who was not a New York Rangers draft pick. He was a Florida third round pick and a very significant late bloomer. So, say for Trocheck, you have top 10 picks in the first 9 positions of the NHL stats race in the Stanley Cup playoffs. If you look at every single team left, you will have a top 2 pick on the roster, which means my whole shtick about every team since the '08 Red Wings having one top 2 pick, except for the 2019 Blues, will remain valid. And again, I just totally, totally, totally 100% think that this is the way to do it.
Wait, wait, wait. The Blues had Jay Bouwmeester.
He was third.
Ah, damn it.
Yeah, he was, I think,
Damn.
2002 third overall. Um, I think, and it's whether or not these high picks are are your superstars. You still to have success in the playoffs, you still need to commit to rebuilding because even if your draft capital isn't going to turn into Connor Bedard, it's still going to turn into super effective players. And I think you got to rebuild, you got to accumulate high end players in the draft, and then is when you start buying in the trade in the free agent market. And I feel like I'm just watching these teams try these retools and it doesn't work. And look at the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks were terrible in the early 2000s, and they're terrible now. But guess what? Kane and Taves won 3 cups together. Connor Bedard and Ivan Demidov are going to be a problem for the rest of the NHL, an issue.
If
They are,
that's who they pick.
and they will pick him. I'm very confident they'll pick him. Um, it's going to be an issue. And listen, so if your team sucks, like if you're a Sharks fan somehow, be happy that they're at least doing the right thing. They're not going out and trying to be just good enough to get 10,000 people in the stands and maybe have an outside chance of finishing 8th. I can't fathom a possibility where that's better for your franchise.
You know what? You're probably right. As we close this little playoff, this not little, it's far from little. This most of our podcast segment on playoffs. I want to propose something to you. If the Rangers win game two and this series becomes a best of five, I would like to place a $20 bet with you on I say the Panthers win, you say the Rangers win. This totally hinges on the series being even after game two.
I'm quite sure I've already won a $20 bet with you in these
Yeah,
playoffs.
you have, and that's why I'm making this
Okay.
because the Leafs lost, so I'm
Oh,
going in.
okay. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. I gotta try and go even with you here.
Yeah, no, the caveat that it's game two is good because
Yeah, yeah, because it's unfair to make the bet, and I mean, like, I don't make bets with friends with odds. Odds bets are lame.
yeah, that's very
Saved for betting apps.
okay. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so James, okay, like this is gonna sound stupid coming out of my mouth. Why do we only know some awards? Like we don't know who's won the Hart Trophy before the awards, do we? We don't.
No,
We don't know the
no.
Calder winner. We don't know the Vezina winner. Like I'm really, really happy that Alexander Barkov won the Selkie, and I'm very, very happy Rick Tocchet won the Jack Adams. But what'll float your way is just the why some awards and not the others. Like, wouldn't Rick Tocchet have also liked to have walked to the stage and received his Jack Adams award, learning he had won at the same time? Likewise with Barkov and the Selkie. James, honestly, in my opinion, the Selkie Trophy is one of the best awards you can win. It means that you play every part of the game of hockey at a very high level. It's admirable, it's valuable, and it's something to be proud of. So why I'm asking you, why do we know this already?
Aiden, I agree with everything you just said. You missed one though. Connor Ingram also won the Bill Masterton Trophy. And Aiden, what does the Bill Masterton Trophy mean?
Uh, Dedication to the sport.
Yeah, and often it has to do with perseverance as well. I don't think that's in the criteria, but I find it often has to do with it. Um, yeah, I completely agree. I would love for, we've got this huge NHL Draft 24 event in Vegas at the Sphere coming, and I know the NHL awards are like somewhat melded in with it. That's part of the whole spectacle they got going on. I don't know why we didn't wait. I prefer to wait and see, but don't we usually find out a bit? Oh, wait, no, we usually find out more about nominees in during the playoffs. I think that's it, right? The rest of it is always saved for the awards.
That's part of the reason I asked you in the manner I did because I just it just threw me and it made me start second guessing like do we get information before most of the time?
Yeah, I don't think we do. I think we only find out nominees before the awards. I think
For
that's it.
It's a little weird these have been trickling out. But anyways, Barkov, a very deserving Selkie Trophy winner. We're officially out of the Patrice Bergeron era of Selkie domination, and for good reason. He was the best at it for a very long time. I would absolutely love this to be renamed the Patrice Bergeron Award. What do you think?
Yeah, it'd be super cool, but and I think it would be awesome and well deserved, but I think it's a slippery slope. We start doing this, we're gonna have to start renaming every award, and I think that's gonna be too hectic.
Yeah, that's valid, more than valid. Tocchet wins the Jack Adams. Writing, I think, was on the wall, especially when you take into account that the expectations versus reality in a small market like Vancouver. Or sorry, not the opposite of a small market, a big market like Vancouver. You get a lot of eyes, right? And huge for Ingram to win the Masterton. Karel Vejmelka looked like Arizona's bona fide starting goalie. It wasn't like this void to be filled. He fought his way into that starting spot, and it's got to be commended.
And one thing I'll add, because I actually met a guy this spring who I want to say played junior with Connor Ingram. I won't name names because conversations are conversations, but um, this guy said Connor Ingram is just one of the best people that he has ever met. Yeah, and I mean, we're not. more than a few years away from Connor Ingram having been in the player assistance program. He went into it when he was a part of the Nashville Predators organization in the shortened 2021 season. And yeah, I mean, there has been a lot that's happened for him to get to this point where he showed up as an elite goaltender this year. So well deserved. Well deserved for sure. The one thing I will say with the Bill Masterton trophy, there are a lot of very deserving guys every year, and that doesn't diminish Ingram winning it. I just also don't want it to diminish all the other guys who showed up when it was very difficult to show up.
Okay. Memorial Cup starts tomorrow, James. We talked about the field. I don't have a lot to say about it other than it's great hockey. Hockey to me is the best when it's played for passion. And those kids are out there playing for passion. No doubt about that. We wanted to talk BCHL final. You talked about how our buddies or your buddy Joey and then our mutual friend Lucas, who's been on this podcast before, are right along with with the ride that is the Surrey Eagles' run to the BCHL final. It's 2-2 through 4 games. Junior A hockey again. It's some great puck. I'll let you take this one.
Well, Aiden, I had I think I spoke on it a little bit last podcast. I had the benefit of going to see these Surrey Eagles in action when I was in my hometown of Port Alberni as they were playing against the Bulldogs. Um, Aiden, this team's for real. This team is very good. They were in the conference finals against Alberni last year and lost. Alberni went on to lose against Penticton, who the Eagles are now playing. And Aiden and I have touched on it before. Usually, winning, I think it's called the Coastal Conference, is a one-way ticket in recent history, at least, to go play against the Penticton Vs, or going back 10, 12 years ago, going to play against the Vernon Vipers, and basically losing 4 or 5, maybe 6 at most games. Usually it's not the Coastal Conference that ends up having a team winning the Fred Page Cup and the BCHL. It's not super easy, but Aiden, this Eagles team is very good. They have a couple very talented goal scorers in Caden Cranston and Aaron Schwartz. They have a lot of depth, a lot of heart, and a lot of spirit. I saw some of these guys play firsthand last year. I got to be between the benches as I saw these guys going out there, getting better each and every night. Um, I mean, one other cool note too is they have Scott Gomez behind the bench as assistant coach, who notably won the Fred Page Cup with them back in his junior days. That is so cool. Maybe he's a good luck charm. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he was the missing piece. I mean, um, maybe, but realistically, these guys have earned their spot. The series is tied 2-2. I won't be able to make it out to Surrey on Friday. Yeah, on Friday for game 5. But if they push it to 7, I will definitely be going. Or no. Yeah, if they make it till game 7, I will definitely be going out there on, I think it would be Tuesday. I think it would definitely be worth it. And I hope you come with me if that's the case. Fred Page Cup final. It's pretty sweet. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I mean, I have a little bit of ties just because I very briefly worked with the organization, and there's a lot of great people there. And I think it's really interesting to see all that heart and soul and all that spirit and all that work culminate for a result like that. I mean, Aiden, you've been around junior hockey teams. It's there's a lot of heart and soul and a lot of passion and dedication that goes to it.
All right, James. Hour 20. We did get a lot of questions. Do you want to wrap this up to pick out what you want to say 4 of these? Because we did get a lot, and we'll answer all of them eventually, but I'll let you pick out your favorite 4 to wrap up today.
Okay. How about I pick 2 and you pick 2?
Okay, sure.
All right, going first. Let's take it completely away from hockey. Someone asked us, slept on TV shows, and I'm going to assume that's a question and not a statement. Um, yeah, I actually have one. A lot of people, while it was on Netflix, I don't know if it still is, watch Freaks and Geeks, which was a bit of a coming out party for guys like Seth Rogen, James Franco, Jason Segel. I mean, it was just a great coming of age comedy with a lot of guys that Judd Apatow put together. I've got another one that Netflix used to have, and now you can't find it just about anywhere unless you want to buy it. It's called Undeclared. It had Jay Baruchel and a few others in the same style of ensemble thing. And I want to say Judd Apatow also had something to do with it. It didn't get as much of a cult following, but I watched it years and years ago in my grandparents' basement when Netflix was, I think, two color schemes ago. I want to say they had like white in their color scheme at that point, maybe something like that. But banger of a show if anyone ever gets to watch it. It only has one season, I want to say like 10, 12 episodes. It just didn't get renewed. Another thing like Freaks and Geeks just didn't get another season. I think a lot of those actors ended up moving on. But yeah, that's a slept on one. Do you have a slept on one at all?
I have actually been racking my brain since I read this question, and I don't think I do, man. Honestly, like any of my favorite TV shows, I they're definitely not underrated. Like they're popular, right? Big Breaking Bad fan. Loved Better Call Saul. In terms of comedies, again, we've talked about our mutual love of How I Met Your Mother. I loved Brooklyn Nine-Nine while it was on, especially in its prime. But I'm too big of a movie person to delve into into obscure TV shows. So I'm glad that you had one because I didn't.
I mean, I've watched a lot of TV shows, Aiden. Like very many. I've watched a lot of movies. I mean, just to add to it, I watched a movie last night that I'd never seen before, Layer Cake with Daniel Craig, which some people view as his unofficial tryout to be James Bond. It's an early Guy Ritchie creation, and it is very, very good. It's stuff to do with just like British crime. Awesome movie. I mean, that's just piggybacking off because we usually do movies a little bit. But yeah, yeah, pick one of these questions, Aiden. Let's see what we got.
Okay, well, we got two very similar ones. One of them was, did Artur Shilovs do enough to supersede Casey DeSmith? And then the other one was worded, was Shilovs a flash in the pan or will he be a decent backup? Those aren't the two options.
Those
Like,
are not the two options at all.
no, I mean, if he's a flash in the pan, he will just be a decent backup. It's not like, oh, he's a flash in the pan, or best case scenario, he's a decent backup. This guy's legit in terms of goaltending prospects. Now, how many times have we seen high end goaltending prospects not, make it? A lot. But Artur Shilovs is right up there with him when it comes to players that could do it. I don't think there's any question. I think he's proven that the last two seasons. Um, in terms of next season specifically, because that was another question we had, I would for sure, without a doubt, he's the backup. Casey DeSmith, 1,000,000% is gone. It will be Demko starting and Shilovs as the backup. And just to add on, I would no doubt run them as a 1A, 1B. I'm not saying the Swayman Olmark religiously rotate them, but Thatcher Demko, James, a couple seasons in a row where there's been some injury concerns. So if you have this guy you trust, why not split it? You know,
Hey man,
40,
even if he plays 30 to
45.
35 games,
Yeah. Yeah.
30 to 35 would be pretty sweet.
No, I totally agree with you.
Awesome. I mean, yeah, I guess another question that I wanted to take a stab at was someone was asking if it has about something to do with Winnipeg Jets records. Could old Jets records be transferred to the current Jets? I hope no team ever does this. I think the old Jets records carried over to the Phoenix, Arizona organization, which carries over to the Utah organization. That is that franchise. That franchise has been bought and moved and then bought and moved. I think those records go with that franchise, just like the current Jets carried over Atlanta Thrashers stuff. That's how that works. I don't see any reason why that should work otherwise. Otherwise, it's going to get very convoluted and mixed up.
Yeah, I totally get the like, oh, Timu Solani, for instance, he broke the record as a Winnipeg Jet. He didn't break the record as a Utah blank. Um,
Utah blank.
it's
A
but
Utah hockey player.
yeah, but I agree with you at the end of the day. Like I totally understand where this is coming from, and you're kind of right in a way about this, whoever put this in. But very simply, it's just it doesn't matter. Like this is just what it is. This is how it be.
All right, Aiden, pick one more.
Uh, okay. How many points would Wayne Gretzky have in this NHL? This is an impossible question to accurately answer. Um, because players are different. If you airdropped Wayne Gretzky with the equipment and the training that he had, he wouldn't succeed in this NHL. I don't think he would. I think he'd be an NHLer, but he'd be so far from what he was in the 80s. And it's just because the game's changed. How about you? What do you think?
Well, Aiden, fortunately, a wonderful website called Hockey Reference has done the work for us
I love hockey reference.
because they have a beautiful thing called era adjusted points, which
Yeah.
everyone always talks about, but no one ever does the math for because no one wants to do it because that is whoever did this is a million times more dedicated to their craft than I will ever be. I sincerely hope that it was a team of people because this is bonkers. Era adjusted points, Wayne Gretzky actually has less. 2,475. That's how many points it would be if we're adjusting every era to a general average. If we're adjusting average scoring now, average scoring then, average scoring in the 30s, whatever it is, all of it averages out to one average. Wayne Gretzky would have 2,475. Um, Gordie Howe would have 2,190 because this formula includes the WHA. And I guess it also includes that for Gretzky. And then Sidney Crosby would have 1,744. Yager would have 2,080. But the interesting part, it brings up Ovi too, because Ovi and Crosby were playing in an era at times where they were putting up very, very strong numbers, and not a lot of players were. So it brings up Ovi to 1,703. I guess most notably, I mean, you're seeing Patrick Kane jump up to 1442. But I mean, I guess this doesn't perfectly answer your question, but this is probably the most logical direction that I can throw it in. Aiden, you
Oh,
have anything to add to that?
no, because that's as good as it's gonna get.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
we can't perfect it. I mean, in today's NHL, I could never tell you if Gretzky's gonna have more or less points. I have no idea. I don't think anyone does. And anyone who says they know, I don't know, unless they played in Gretzky's era and they coach right now, I think those people might have a shred of an idea.
I
They
like,
have an inkling.
I respect that. That's a good that's a good criteria for somebody to be able to properly analyze
If
this.
you could ask Rick Tocchet off the record, he
Yeah,
might have an idea for you.
yeah, I agree.
But, I mean, ask Gretzky, he's so humble that he'd be like, "Oh, I couldn't do it in today's blah 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 blah." Because I mean, he'll never like he's probably just the most humble, great one ever.
Yeah, he's not gonna ever.
He'll tell you that he'll probably tell you that like Crosby and all of these people are better than he ever was. So, yeah. But yeah, I think that's all we got for we have quite a few more questions, but thankfully you guys loaded us right up. So as Aiden said, we're gonna save some of them for next week. Yeah, I just want to thank all you guys for listening, sending in the questions. The fan engagement is very much appreciated. I again will invite you guys to send in voice notes. Again, we will screen them. But we still haven't had that yet. I would love for you guys to send in a voice note, ask us a question that way. And I will also invite slash ask you to rate the pod on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. We would love to have your rating. I mean, if you give us a 1 star, 0 stars, I guess it's our own fault. So, um,
Yeah,
on that wonderful note,
it just
uh,
tells us we need to be better, which is
yeah, 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 there you go. So without further ado, thank you all for listening. Let's roll that outro. Cheers, guys.